We have an active weather pattern ahead for the next 7 days with two storms that will be heading into the eastern part of the U.S. and probably both of them heading for the eastern Great Lakes. And there might even be two other storms behind that one. Long range, the pattern changing as the Pacific fire hose goes away. But what exactly does that mean for the east? We will have all that and more tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Tuesday, the 17th of January. Each day that goes by brings us closer to spring. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, in southwest Suffolk County on Long Island, serving the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area. They've got salt, they've got sand, and they've got mulch. And they have plenty of snow blowers and lots of the great snow and ice melt products, shovels, scrapers, what have you. You name it, they got it at Omni. 631-756-1125. Nowhere can you find better prices, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. Joe?
That's right. And a good evening to you.
I got to tell you something. I always try on my professional. I have two Facebook pages. I have a professional quote unquote page, which dates back to when I was at News 12. And I have a personal page. On that personal page, I'll post stuff that I would not otherwise post on the professional page. And sometimes I look at the comic strips,
Right.
Commentary and whatever. But on both the professional and the personal page, I stole something from you yesterday.
I saw, you thief.
A cartoon about snowplow drivers support group.
Yes, I don't think it didn't. I did see that, and I thought he stole it from me. And guess what? I think Jeff Banson stole it from me too.
Well, the only thing I commented upon was the fact that meteorological winter is now half over. We're done with the first half of winter. Lord only knows, and we'll discuss that in the minutes to come, what the second half may bring. But I post this cartoon on my professional Facebook page.
And somebody said,
No.
Oh,
I try to post, interesting things that appeal to the erudite, scientific tidbits and whatever. And it always comes up with like maybe 14 likes, 20 likes, one or two people share. I posted this stupid cartoon last night. I want to tell you that so far it has gotten 46 comments. It has been shared 120 times, and it has gotten 350 likes.
let me see if I beat you. Hold on a second. Because I put it up yesterday right before the show went on the air. And unfortunately, I was hoping that I could show it on air, but it didn't sync over to my Google Photos thing. So I want to see if it's still up there in case anybody hasn't seen it yet.
It's been up on my page for 22 hours. 350 likes, Joe. 120 shares. Crazy.
Of course, my Facebook page, oh, here it goes. Finally, it's loading. And taking its darn sweet time. 581 likes, Joe. 72 comments and 116 shares. How many shares did you have?
120.
Okay. I got you on the likes, but you got me by a few on the shares. I didn't put this on my personal page. But for those of you who want to see what it actually is, I have it here on the screen. So let me bring it up. And there you have it. It is a picture of a snow lovers support group.
Snow plow
drivers support group. Yeah.
As if they weren't making enough already from the union.
What union?
Why, they've got to be a member of some kind of a union, aren't they? Or
no, a lot of these guys are private.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought there was some kind of a union.
Here's the thing. So the one of the guys that I worked with for a few years, he would occasionally get into these conversations with the other snowplow guys because I have them in a chat group together, and they talk about the fact that usually what he used to do was he used to put half of them on a yearly contract and half of them he billed by the inch. This way, he always knew that he was going to get paid one way or the other, whether it's by contract or whether it's by the inch. And if you have a snow year like this year where you don't have anything to plow, or minimal amount to plow, he's still getting his yearly contract pay. So, that's one conversation that goes on. These poor guys, though, I do feel for them because they still have to pay for maintenance on the trucks. They still have to pay for insurance. They still have to pay for all sorts of things. Plus, they've got stockpiles of salt and everything else that they haven't been able to use. So, ain't an easy business. It is
well,
not.
Just like what Omni says, we're getting ready. We're getting ready for that second half. The second half is going to be gangbusters, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yeah. Let's add the word guarantee to that too.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord. Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight. I just want to remind everyone that tomorrow night we will have Jen Walton of Girls Who Chase, Women Who Storm Chase, and she'll to get your questions ready because I honestly I know some things about the storm chasing and what they do, but it's a small amount, so I'm sure we're going to learn a lot about how they prepare for a storm chase and how they decide where they're going to go, and maybe about the equipment that they have. So get your questions ready. That's tomorrow night at 7:35 right here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Chris O'Shaughnessy, Joe, says snow plowing insurance costs $15,000 a year, and he has to buy it by October 15th.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
That's a lot of money. Yeah, it's tough. Nobody wants to see folks have to deal with snow, but at the same time, we've got people that make their living by the snow. And well, look, we know that nothing's going to happen this week, and we do have an active pattern that is developing, but we're still waiting for cold air, and there's still a lot of the one thing we know for sure is that the Pacific Fire Hose jet is going away for a while. How long it goes away is another question. But and once the Pacific jet goes away, that Pacific Fire Hose goes away, then we're going to have to see how the upper air configures in the rest of the United States. And as I've said before, the pattern change you want and the pattern change you get may not necessarily be the same thing.
Well, according to Dr. Cohen, and he posted this morning at about 9:30, still lots of uncertainty with predicted protracted and complicated polar vortex disruption. At least last night's GFS is all in with a major sudden stratospheric warming may or may not happen, but in the meantime, making for some entertaining animations. And he does have on his latest tweet an animation of the Northern Hemisphere and of the polar vortex seemingly splitting, rotating, bouncing around. And what it all means, at least to me, is I'm going to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And, well, I've had snow 4 times here. I had a white Christmas. I really can't complain here in Northeast Georgia. The two deep troughs down the Appalachian Mountains so far this winter, and that is usually good for some mountain effect snows here in the central and southern Appalachians. So I can't really complain too much. At least I've gotten the ground whitened up and a little bit more, and that's a lot. That's more than what many people can say in places in southeastern Pennsylvania, where some places haven't seen a flake yet, or even accumulating snow for that matter. And I think we're at 314 days, Joe. I think we have 18 days to go to break the record of longest time between measurable snowfalls.
That's for Central Park now.
You're right. So that takes us, I think, to February 1st or February 2nd as the magic day.
And this is not to be confused with the other streak that we're working on, and that is the longest number of days for a given winter season without measurable snow. That particular record is January 29th, 1973. And that winter, no measurable snow was recorded at Central Park up until that day. And then on January 29th, 1973, Central Park had 1.8 inches of snow, the first measurable snowfall of the season for that winter. They only ended up with, I think, 2.6 inches total for the entire winter season. By the way, while Central Park got a paltry 1.8 inches of snow with that first snowfall in late January of 1973, to the north and to the west of New York, they got clobbered. I can tell you that in Yorktown Heights, Dr. Jerry Thaler, who for many years kept records of the Weather Cooperative Observer in Yorktown Heights, reported 13 inches of snow. In parts of northwestern New Jersey, up to 18 inches of snow. I probably up here in Putnam Valley would have had at least a foot, if not more. So that was, and it was heavy and wet snow. Again, Central Park, only 1.8 inches, but places north and west got a heck of a lot more. So we're going to see what happens. We're still keeping that streak alive.
With them heading for the
although I must tell you, Joe, that I saw tonight that already at least one local weather forecaster here in New York already talking about, well, coming up maybe the mid or latter part of next week, looks like the first real shot that we have of getting snow in the New York metropolitan area. And he said, now, and then he included a disclaimer. He says, but of course, you're not supposed to get uber excited because a lot of times a lot of these long-range forecasts don't really work out. And here I am, and I'm shouting at the TV screen.
A lot of times.
If they don't, he said, if they don't work out, if the long-range things don't work out, why do you even mention it 8 and 10 days in advance? And I'm banging my head.
I know.
Against the TV screen.
I know. Yeah, I know. And as another thing, just.
And then my cardiologist, who comes from Jamaica, has a wonderful Jamaican accent. He says to me, Mr. Rea, I don't understand why you are so stressed out, why you get so angry. Because he's upset sometimes I don't take my blood pressure medicine. I don't understand why you get so angry. And I'm like, this is the reason. This is the reason.
Well, all through the winter, not a single one of those long-range storms has even come remotely close to panning out. And today's was and by the way, the European has done this 4 or 5 days in a row now, where it's showed significant amounts of accumulating snow for different weather systems. Of several to many inches. This one today is now for the January 26th, 27th, which frankly I would love it if it happened because it'd be on my birthday. But no, it's a matter of. It's like, why even bother? It's a snowless winter. Look, if this were a winter where we were getting snow systems, or we've got some snow, it wouldn't be out of character to say, okay, it looks like that we're going to get another snowfall. We haven't even gotten the first one yet. I mean, the first widespread snowfall, at least that covers at least 3/4 of much of the area that we cover. You have to bang your head against the wall, to just kind of realize that that's not going to cure your headache here. The trend is your friend. Until it's obvious, you could predict it all day long. You're gonna crash and burn on those types of forecasts.
Adam Lowe writes, Joe, have you seen the Euro and GFS monthlies? They have a crazy negative PNA for the whole month of February, giving a blowtorch for the East Coast with temperatures pushing 70 degrees in February.
Look, I'll tell you this, if this could be a minor interruption in the primary pattern that lasts maybe a week to 10 days, and then you go back to that Pacific fire hose. Don't rule that out either. In spite of everything that's going on, it wouldn't shock me if we get this really short window and nothing happens in that window for one reason or another, and then come early February that window breaks down and the Pacific fire hose comes roaring back. I'm telling you, I can feel it. I can feel the model runs for the next week are going to, from time to time, are going to make everybody jump for joy, and then watch at the last second it's gonna do what it's done on occasion, where it looks like it's going to change to something really dynamic and really cold, and then all of a sudden the trough is in the west and the Pacific fire hose is back, which, by the way, is what the 18Z model run did today. So just to throw some pessimism out there. But we're happy here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, and welcome to everybody tonight on the chat board and those of you lurking in the background. We're on Monday through Thursdays at 7:35. Fridays and Saturdays we're off, and Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And we will do shows on Friday and Saturday if there's ever a storm to do a show about. So if we do, we'll let you know when we adjust the schedule accordingly. David Fuller, our first Super Chat hit of the night, saying our snow chances are still alive. Yeah, well, so is if you buy a lottery ticket to Mega Millions. You're alive until they call the numbers, and then you're not alive. Then you're done. Okay, so you're sharing. Oh, look, that below normal is inching a little further east today.
It is, and the especially cold weather. By the way, did you hear that Flagstaff, Arizona, picked up 2 feet of snow? Well, good for them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're looking at in this area right here, 80 to 90% probability of below normal temperatures, right in the Four Corners area. So there you go. That's interesting. But still, through the 27th of January, they still have our neck of the woods in above normal, particularly so, I might add, in central and coastal New England with above normal temperature extremes. Now, does it get any better? Maybe it does by the 8 to 14 day. Oh, look at this. The below normal line has now crept all the way into West Virginia, extreme western Pennsylvania, Western Virginia, right along the Tennessee-North Carolina border, northern and western Georgia, northern half of Mississippi and Alabama, all the way down to the Gulf Coast. So, and look at that broad area, especially where temperatures are anticipated. It's kind of expanding. It's doing a slow expansion. So slowly but surely, it is going to be trending toward colder, but underscore that word slowly. Now let's take a look at
what's the date on this, on the 8 to 14?
Today.
No. What's the date on the time frame they're forecasting for?
Issued January 17, January 25th to January 31st.
Okay.
So all the way to the end of the month. Now, as far as the hazards outlook is concerned, this is interesting. They have now a moderate risk of hazardous temperatures below normal temperatures, or encompassing much of the northern plains down into the central and south central Rocky Mountain states, and a slight chance all the way to almost the west coast. I mean, my goodness, Joe, any further to the west, and they'd have a slight risk of cold temperatures for places like San Francisco and Los Angeles. In fact, I think you mentioned, was it yesterday or the day before, that you were suggesting that snow might fall?
It'll snow in areas near San Francisco and Los Angeles, in elevated areas near San Francisco and Los Angeles, before it snows before we get a widespread snowfall in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. Don't be shocked by that.
All right. And the slight risk of hazardous temperatures reaches all the way to the west central Great Lakes, down into well, not quite the Tennessee River Valley, across northern sections of Arkansas, northern Texas, and I would assume this box also holds true for the eastern boundary zone. That would be for the 25th to the 31st of January. We just saw that they had below normal probabilities extending about this far east by the end of the month. So there you go. The cold air, not here yet, but still edging ever so slowly toward the eastern part of the U.S. Precipitation-wise, well, they've got a rather broad area from the 25th to the 26th, encompassing much of the Northeast, the Ohio Valley, the lower Great Lakes, down into your sector of the country, Joe, for the 25th and 26th. 25th and 26th is 1 week from tomorrow. 25th Wednesday, 26th Thursday. That's still more than a week away. Slight risk encompassing much of the southeastern states for the 27th to the 30th. In fact, they have in this zone here both of those risks of heavy precip overlapping. Joe, you're in an overlap area here.
All right, so what is the precip type? Do they say the precip type?
They don't say the type here.
They just say
however,
heavy rain, heavy precip.
Just heavy precip. Now, if you want snow, looky. Not too far north of the tri-state area, they have a slight risk of heavy snow over the northern tier of Pennsylvania, much of western and central and northern New York State, and I would suppose central and northern New England, encompassing all of Maine as well. So if you want snow, there you go. That is the area, and that is for what time frame now that they're calling for?
25th and 26th.
That would be a week from tomorrow. So if you believe this, a week from tomorrow, places up here, and I'm sure Joe will show us in a few moments, WPC's long range for frozen precip that goes out for a week. Maybe they have something. And what else? One last thing, wind. Wind looks like it could be rather windy. And it's all 25th to 27th. So apparently they are setting their sights on some kind of a major disturbance moving into the eastern part of the country next week, bringing all kinds of mayhem, rain, snow, wind, and eventually behind it, a surge of colder air. So that would be all for the middle and latter part of next week.
Well, that's the one where the European this afternoon had a 970 low at 40 and 70, and had snow from New Jersey to southeastern New England. I can, since we're in the mood of showing maps, I might as well show that. But let's take a look in case you haven't seen it. So we can see, definitely going to be an active pattern, because we've got the three storm systems that are going to be in play in the next 8 or 9 days. And this is, of course, starting with tonight. We've got this dying low over Lake Michigan. And that is, hold on, this is actually the map for tomorrow afternoon. So this is what we're going to see tomorrow with some rain moving through. Let me just roll this back so we can make a little more sense. There's the dying low. I'm sorry. There's the dying low tonight, and then that goes away. And of course, I just suddenly realized that today's Tuesday. For some reason, I'm off again because of the holiday. So yeah, we had this dying low today. And that produced what little precip it produced today. Should be a decent day tomorrow. And of course, there's hardly any cold air behind the system that went through today. It's actually going to be warmer tomorrow than it was today. Here comes the low that's moving out of the Central Rockies, and that is moving northeastward. So that goes into the lakes. So mostly rain, except for well up into upstate New York. New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine get into some snow out of this. Then that goes out, and it turns a little bit colder behind that, but nothing exceptional. And then you have, on Sunday, a low coming out of the Gulf of Mexico that rides up the Appalachians. And, the European is seeming to show that at least there'll be enough cold air for maybe some snow in the Central Appalachians north, and perhaps some ice and some snow across much of Pennsylvania and up into upstate New York. In fact, they show quite a bit of it here. This is a low that it rides just inland of the coast naturally. The low is centered right on New York City, a 983 low on the 23rd, Monday morning, the 23rd. And that goes out, and then here comes the next one after that. And this is the one that WPC and CPC are talking about here, where as each one of these systems goes by, you get a little bit colder behind each one. So finally, by the time you get through the one on Sunday into Monday, if it's correct, then you have the European doing this, where it's got a deepening low going right through the box. and shows a significant snow event here for Wednesday in the 25th and 26th. That's a 969 low there at 39 and 71 by Thursday morning. And then, of course, it's a 962 low at roughly 41.4 and 68.1 by the time we get to Thursday afternoon. A lot has to go right for this to happen. I believe the idea that there's going to be three weather systems moving along and amplifying to an extent. And maybe the last one does become something a bit more major. But I got to wonder, Joe, whether the European is doing this again. It's been, it's been trying to make these coastal lows and they haven't worked out. They've all wound up being inland lows.
Right.
The Icon and the European are holding hands and moving along, in lockstep. Which, if you're a model watcher, you would think that would be a good sign. Those models usually tend to move together. The GFS, on the other hand, wants to keep everything inland, and it basically has four lows going into the lakes. I'll just might as well bring up the GFS now and take a look at that, and you'll see that it has been its character this winter season to be more to the left. When was it? About 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, where the European kept trying to make a storm, taking a southern route, and the GFS, wanting to take it up to western New York, and it wound in the long range, and it wound up being correct. So here's the one for Thursday that goes out, and then here comes the next one for Sunday into Monday. And that is left of the European, not as deep, but left. Although there's probably lower pressures closer to the coast than what the models where it's printing the L. And then that goes out, and then it's got the third system. And this one, it takes right up the west side of the Appalachians before it redevelops it near Cape Cod. And that would be, snow for northern New England if that's the case. So I'm leery of what the European is doing. Because like I said, it's been trying to pull that rabbit out of the hat a number of times in the last couple of weeks, and it just hasn't happened. So, and then of course after that lows goes by, it gets cold and dry, which is the normal way things. And there's actually another one around the 29th and 30th that moves off the Carolina coast there. So there's four storms here in play. The first two are not going to – I don't think the first two are going to do much of anything other than rain, except up north. And then the one to key on is maybe the one for later next week, because perhaps then it'll be cold enough and the upper air may support it more than what we're seeing right now.
But as we've always said, whatever happens – 5, 10, 15 days down the road, depends upon what the other storms did out ahead of it.
Right.
And of course, we've got the system that just, passed us by, didn't do much of anything. The one on Thursday is more of a warm front than anything else. Storm goes through the Central Great Lakes. That's not going to bring you any snow. That's storm number one. As you pointed out, Joe, we have a second storm. That would be for the end of the weekend. The European has it passing almost directly over us. So maybe something initially to get the snow weenies excited, but mostly a rain event, I think, in the immediate tri-state area. And then comes storm number 3. That's the one I think that a lot of people, and this particular TV weathercaster was keying on about snow for later next week. But again, whatever that storm does is going to be based strongly on what the storm on Sunday does and what the storm on Thursday does. It's all, like in lockstep.
And the real key here is if you look at, you look at the upper air, each one of these as it goes by tends to take a notch out of that ridge that's off the southeast coast. The key is, I actually think the system on Sunday is probably the most important, because that's the one that has to take a significant give a significant hit to the ridge off the southeast coast. That's what the European's upper air is indicating here. that the storm system for Sunday into Monday flattens that ridge, and that allows the trough to basically access a little bit further to the east. I mean, it's here it is the Wednesday night. It's kind of axis north-south right along 85, and then kind of lifts up and goes negative with a little cutoff low that forms off the New Jersey coast and heads on its way to Nova Scotia. So the storm to pay attention to, probably from the standpoint of the long range, is I think the one for Sunday, because if it can flatten the southeast ridge enough, then you got a chance of being cold enough for more frozen precipitation next Thursday. That's the Europeans' view. Now, if we look at the GFS will indicate that they're kind of in lockstep through the weekend, but the GFS has a weaker system for Sunday, and it doesn't really flatten that southeast ridge enough. The heights, you notice, they start coming up again on Tuesday, early part of next week, so that when the next thing lifts out, it lifts out way to the west. The trough axis on the GFS is more at like 90 or 95. So that's going to be the key to all of this is going to be probably the Sunday system. If it can get stronger, if the models are underdoing the strength of that, and if the European is right, showing a stronger system, then then the one that follows on Thursday will have more of a chance. Otherwise, you're just going to have another system that's going to go to your west.
I think in the case of the Sunday system, it's going to be rain mainly, and then as it pulls away to the north and east, it'll drag in very quickly a shot of colder air. It could very well be a rain to snow event for Sunday night into early Monday. And then with the system that a lot of people are whispering or talking about for, again, the middle or latter part of next week, I think, too, that storm is going to move off of the mid-Atlantic coast. I think it's going to start mostly as rain. The question is, Joe, as the storm is passing closest to us, sometime perhaps late Wednesday night or early Thursday, as it intensifies, will that blow in enough cold air behind it to make a quick switch from rain over to snow? And could that snow be significant snow? I'm not sure. But I think in both cases, we're looking at initially rain changing to snow. It's just going to be a matter of just how quickly the cold air drives in behind each retreating system, and whether or not we can still manage to get anything significant out of that. I don't think much on Sunday night, Monday, but maybe, just maybe, Wednesday or early Thursday of next week, it just might be enough to change over to a sticking or significant snowfall. But again, that's just speculation,
right?
And I'm not going to. And
we're 9 days away in a year where it hasn't snowed, so you have to really, you're sort of betting on you're not betting on a 99-1 horse, but you're betting on maybe a 30-1 horse that has won a race or two and is in a field where most of the other horses are multiple winners, and that maybe on this horse's best day it could win, but chances are it won't. And by the way, as we go out,
is it a mutter?
Yeah, no, I know. No, sometimes a he can make a better mutter than a she. Yes.
Yeah.
If we look at the long range on this recent run, I know it's the off run, but I always have to laugh because the GFS loves to just drop troughs in the western part of the United States whenever it can, and it's got some semblance of that Pacific fire hose back by the time we get to February 2nd. Now, again, it's the in-between run. And notice, by the way, on this run, all the lower pressures across the North Atlantic, over Greenland, the Arctic, Western Canada to Alaska, everything in blue. And it's all ridging here in the eastern U.S. It's back to a zonal flow. That was on the 18Z run. If we go back to the 12Z run, it's even worse. Look at this on the Joe. Look how deep that trough is in the west.
Yeah.
It just drops it bodily. It loves to do that. And the ridge, of course, in the east is just going to fly up. Now,
right.
This is the 384 hour. It's gonna change, obviously. But I get it. I just, in a winter where if you're a snow lover, you're getting basically attacked in every direction. Nothing can go right for you at all, even remotely, because you can't even see a flake or an ice pellet. And you've got these models that occasionally offer you these glimmers of hope, and then it does something like this. Because this is just horrible for snow chances in the eastern part of the United States.
Hey, but at least Puxatawny Phil probably will see his shadow with the ridge building over the east.
Oh God, really? Yeah. Now we have to go through that horror again. Once a year. Thank God they only do that once a year and don't have a groundhog for every season. I personally do not believe this. Just to be clear, I think the model is just kind of lost here with everything going on. And of course, you mentioned about Judah Cohen, and I was looking today at the polar vortex in the stratosphere. Again, I'm not versed in what happens up there compared to what happens down here, and the polar vortex just actually does get very weak for late January. And I'm using the ensembles here. There was a couple of runs where kind of looked like maybe it was going to stretch and split. But the polar vortex does get pretty weak, and that is supposed to be a positive for colder air spreading into North America. But the problem is we just don't know where exactly. And that is, he seems to be still at least leaving the door open. We're just going to, you're in a bad Murder, She Wrote mystery, and you're just kind of waiting to see who the killer is. Yeah, that just really is the gist of it all. Anyway, we do have some weather tonight. Somebody's getting a lot of snow, and that is Colorado, northeast Colorado, into virtually the whole state of Nebraska is under a winter storm warning. Northwestern Iowa, southeastern South Dakota, now in a winter storm warning. They've extended winter storm watches east into southeastern Minnesota, northeastern Iowa, crossing through Wisconsin into the upper peninsula of Michigan and the northern areas of the lower peninsula of Michigan. Also, we have winter storm warnings up for other areas in Colorado. Warnings and advisories in New Mexico. Still have winter storm warnings up through much of central Arizona, including Flagstaff. And advisories up in parts of Utah, northern Nevada, southwest Idaho, northern California, eastern Oregon. So it's all out there. And we still have winter weather advisories up for northern New York and much of Vermont. And much of that is due to freezing precipitation rather than the frozen stuff.
Right. And yeah, 4 inches, at least 4 inches of snow is a lock for much of Nebraska and for also northern sections of northeastern Colorado, maybe a little sliver of southeastern Wyoming. You want more snow, you say? Well, I can tell you that there is a 70, according to WPC, in portions of southwestern Nebraska between tonight and tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. There's at least a 70% probability of at least 12 inches of snow. So there it is, Joe. There you go. Let's go to Nebraska, because that seems to be, I don't know exactly where Omaha is relative to where the entire state, but you go to southwestern sections of Omaha of Nebraska.
There it is.
They're gonna get blitzed.
There it is. That's the probability of at least 12.
Right.
In Nebraska. Denver's going. They're forecasting 7 to 14 for Denver out of this, and they haven't gotten too much snow this winter either. It's all been really west of the Rockies, and certainly in California. But this is the probability of at least 12. The probability of at least 8 covers a large area of Nebraska, northeastern Colorado, also an area around Denver in Colorado, and the 50% goes into Iowa. We also have snow areas of at least 8 in the Sierra Nevadas and in parts of the Cascades, a small area of 50%. And if we just go to the measly 2 inches, there you have it. The probabilities of 2 large area of the west, and of course you see pretty much where they have the winter storm warning up is that whole area of 95% or higher probability of at least two is under a either winter storm warnings or winter storm watches, soon to become warnings, stretching from Colorado up into northern Michigan. So you kind of know that the storm track is going to be, you take a low probably north of Kansas, just north of Kansas City to near Chicago, to north of Detroit. So from there, north and west, there's your snow. And in the Northeast, we're looking at a high probability of at least two. This, by the way, carries us to Friday night. So this is all from the Thursday system. High probabilities of at least two north of I-90 in upstate New York, places like Glens Falls, Saratoga, the Adirondacks, also in Vermont, New Hampshire, and western Maine, even down to the coast, showing some high probabilities of at least two there. And as you said before, as far as the long range goes, the last days on the long range, so this is from the Sunday system. This is for Sunday into Monday. So they have a 10 to 30% for, let's call it at least three, from the mountains of West Virginia, the northern half of Pennsylvania, even in northern New Jersey, they got a probability of 10 to 30% for three. North of Route 84, I honestly think, Joe, that unless we get a surprise on Thursday that it gets slightly colder than advertised, I think the southern edge of this is probably too far south. It should be further north than that. Maybe from the Poconos to the Cats, the southern areas from the Poconos, draw a line from there to the Catskills to maybe central Mass to southern New Hampshire. Somewhere in there is probably where that southern flank would be, in my opinion.
The southern flank marks the 10% probability. Now,
right.
How much can you possibly hope to get out of a 10% chance? Now, if we had another color up here, which I presume would be the 30% to 50%, the blue zone, then where the 30 meets the light shade of green, where the interaction point with the light shade of green, that would be where 30% would be, and then you could start talking about some considerations. But it's even down here, the lower edge, it's like a 1 in 10 chance long range now that they are thinking about some kind of an accumulating.
Well, they're also just looking at the areas of snow, because the GFS is much further left than the other models. They're kind of going with more of what the European is and the Icon is doing. I'm going to bring the Icon up and show you what that model does, because it's not that different from the European. So this is now, let's go to Thursday. Let's roll it back here. So here's our system for Thursday as it heads to the lakes. Okay, they're going to get snow up there in the lakes, but here in the Northeast, it's mostly rain. I mean, you really have to push it up to Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine to get any snow out of this. Maybe northeastern New York in time. Okay, that goes out. You get a little push of cool air. Now here comes the next low. It's on the Florida Panhandle. The high is already kind of in a bad spot anyway. Little snow breaks out in Illinois and Indiana. The Icon only goes out to 120 hours. It's got a low in western North Carolina. But you've already got like southeast isobars here. I mean, it just sort of implies that at least for inland areas might have some trapped cold air. I'll use the 12Z run because we can go out another 60 hours after that. And you see how the Icon takes it into West Virginia. Then suddenly the low jumps to Delaware and runs right up the coast to over Montauk. So, okay, if that's right, that means that upstate New York, primarily I-90 northward, gets saved with some heavy snows there. And also you see the dark blue snows in Vermont, New Hampshire, and into Maine as the low deepens. And here, again, the key to the system that for this system gets pretty deep on the European and on the Icon. By deep, I mean intense, versus the weaker GFS. So it dents that southeast ridge, and then that maybe gives you a chance at this thing. Now, this is the last day on this is Tuesday night, the 25th. There's a 99 low in northeastern Oklahoma already occluded out. And there's some colder air just to our north. So, sort of implies that maybe this will get shoved underneath and take more of a southern route. You know, hope springs eternal for, for snow
That's
lovers. Hope springs eternal.
well, that's what you're going to have to hope for. It was what a lot of the snow lovers were hoping for in 82, 83, when it was one of the warmer El Ninos in the last half century. And all of a sudden, they had that little bit of a window in the second week of February of 83, which allowed just enough cold air to come down. High pressure was in the perfect spot right over New England. A little wave of low pressure came up, scooted right underneath that zone of high pressure, but it was enough to throw enough warm air advection up over the top of the cold air to produce the infamous megalopolitan blizzard, 1 to 2 feet of snow from Washington up to Boston. A situation which, just a few weeks earlier, you would have said, "Oh, that's impossible." Not the way we've been seeing things going lately, but it happened, and it can happen again. Maybe later next week will be and I'll tell you something. For those who are rooting, for us to break the record of January 29th at Central Park, the latest that we've ever gone into the winter season without seeing any measurable snow, it would figure that we might get something around the 26th or 27th, a few days before we have a chance of tying that record. And it wouldn't even be. I'm not asking or saying that we need a big snowstorm. Even if we get like an inch, that's it. That makes the record from 1973 still safe. We'll see.
Yeah. Right now on the satellite, you can see a lot of clouds in the northeast. You get a little, what was left of that low in the lakes to pushed a few showers through, and a little bit of freezing precip up in colder areas to the north. You can also see the clouds gathering in the Rockies and in the Central Plains as they set up for their snowstorm as it develops. And that all gets ejected out to the northeast in good time. And on the other satellite, which I have, which is the west, I wanted to show the west because there's not that much going on in California except over the Sierra Nevadas. Certainly not seeing widespread rain. And while there are weather systems out there, unlike what we were seeing on the satellite virtually every day for the last 2 weeks, these spinning animals out there that were coming eastward, much less organized now, and not seeing those big storms in that Pacific fire hose jet that we referred to as it continues to slowly but surely break down. And as far as snow is concerned, again, just to show you on the forecast here for the digital forecast from the Weather Service, this is through Friday evening, and you can see where the max area is. They got an 11 for Denver. You've got 14, 15, 16-inch amounts being indicated for much of central Nebraska, where WPC has that high probability of 80% of 70% or higher of at least 12, or 80% higher of at least 12. Yeah, they're gonna wind up getting it. I mean, when the models do a snowstorm in this area 10 days in advance, you could go to the bank with it. You could bet the mortgage that it will be there, okay? But when the models make a storm along the East Coast, it's there on one run, it's gone in another, it comes back one or two more times, and then the low winds up going to Detroit.
Yeah, what usually happens is, like, let's say 6 to 10 days in advance, they're promoting the model guidance run, promoting a big storm, as you said, Joe, along the eastern seaboard. Then all of a sudden, after the 6 day, we get to like 5 days and 4 days, it's gone. It completely loses it,
Yeah.
and then it goes away for a while, and then like 3 or 4 days before the event, all of a sudden it comes back. It drives you crazy.
Oh, it
It
does.
absolutely is mind-boggling. Or as you said once to me, I forgot what storm it was. You said like you wanted to take a nail and drive it through your head. Yeah,
I'm really good
crazy.
good with the concept of taking garden implements
Yes,
like pitchforks and ice picks and just driving it into my skull just to take me out of
exactly.
my misery. By the way, we
Right.
had some super chat hits other than David Fuller, but I can't see them.
Raymond O'Hara was one of them.
Raymond
Uh,
O'Hara. Thank you,
Raymond
Raymond.
Over. And that's it so far. As far as I know, it's been David Fuller and Raymond O'Hara, not
Oh,
Tim O'Hara, who's still taking care of Uncle Martin.
Uncle
But
Martin. I knew you were going to go down that road. Keith James says, "What about the weather forecast in Philadelphia for the Giants game, Eagles game Saturday evening?" I think Saturday should be fine. And as much as big a Giant fan as I am, um, this is going to be the third time they're going to face the Eagles, and they didn't do well the first two times. They're going to have to play the game of their lives, and
yeah,
Philadelphia is going to have to be flat
but
for the Philadelphia's a good team.
but
They're going to,
Joe, the Giants, the second game that they played against Philadelphia, they didn't have any. They had their Scribinis in. They were saving their first, their best guys for the playoff game we just had a few days ago. And they almost, and I mean, I'm not saying that they could have won, but they made it a real nail biter, I think, for Philadelphia toward the end of the game.
yeah.
They did not roll over and play dead.
Well,
So now,
maybe by that standpoint, they may have figured out a way that they can beat Philadelphia, maybe, but we'll see.
I think
Um,
I think by the way for Philadelphia, probably more clouds than sun, but that doesn't matter. I mean,
yeah.
nobody cares about the condition of the sky. No precipitation, and I think the game time temperature down in Philly probably will be around 45, 47 degrees. We're not talking about Lambeau Field with 30 below zero. So both clubs should be out there, and they both have their first stringers out there. The weather should be okay, and here's to hoping that the Giants can continue to move forward.
Uh, the Northeast Weatherbot says the Euro and Canadian are in the same camp, and you throw the icon in there too, while the GFS is on its own. And I'll just come back and say, yes, but so far this month, every time that the other models have tried to take a storm out to the south and the GFS has taken the storm up to the north, guess which one has been correct? And by the way, I would keep an eye on the icon model with the 2627 system, if only because of the fact that the icon has been pretty good at being the first model of the renegades that are keep trying to show coastal storms. It's been the first model to make the jump to take the northerly track, and then the other two, the European and the Canadian, will follow. So if the icon makes the jump to where the GFS is, you can pretty much put that system, put it to bed. that because it ain't going to happen. So that's another thing. Watch the Sunday system. You want it to be as strong as possible to just kind of crack that southeast ridge just enough to let the next system have something more to work with in terms of cold air, and watch the icon model to see if it jumps into the GFS territory tomorrow in trying to go further left. And we've got another super chat hit tonight from Ken Musillo,
Yes,
hitting super chat. Thank you very much, Mr. Ken.
and just jumping back to football for a moment, Tyler Fengya says, "Really hope Bengals win in Buffalo this week." I don't know if you're aware, Tyler. This game against the Bengals and the Buffalo Bills will not be played on either team's turf. This is going to be played in a completely neutral. I'm not exactly sure. It has something to do with the fact that the game where they never
Yeah,
completed,
that exactly.
and
Because
I don't understand.
they didn't play that last game, so that impacted who would get home field advantage. So
Right.
they
So
decided that they would that if Buff. However, it worked out. It turned out that they're going to play this game on a neutral field.
in Atlanta, they're going to play
Yes.
in Atlanta. So, hey, Joe, you could just, drive on down, a few hours to your south and see the game if you have enough money to, give the scalper.
Yeah, no, I'm waiting to see if they've called Dr. Harris and have left for the hospital with Mrs. Ricardo.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking not. Actually, I'm going Saturday. When is the game? Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday night. Well, you mean in Atlanta?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think it's Sunday. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I know the
Well,
Giant game is Saturday night.
Saturday I'm going. Depending on my daughter, who's going to be having a baby at any moment. Um, I'm supposed to go with my son-in-law and my grandsons and go to a model train show in Duluth. Not Duluth,
Well, those are nice.
Minnesota, Duluth, Georgia.
I love those train shows.
Yeah. So we're going to
You
go
know,
to a model train show. They're
it
really
is so
into
it's so funny.
their
It's so
Lionel
funny.
trains.
It's so funny. Here's a room. It must be like maybe 1,000 square feet, and here's the room. The whole room has the train tracks and the models, little models of the guy, chopping wood or whatever, and the railroad crossings and everything else. But you see the guys who are behind the control panel, and they all look like they're all dressed up like engineers with the
Yeah,
hat,
it's
the
great.
cap, and everything else. They're living their second childhood with these things.
Listen, the amount of work that goes into creating those worlds, because that's what they're doing. They're basically creating these worlds with villages and lakes and mountains and things. I mean, it's incredible how uh, uh, how beautiful some of these things are.
Oh yeah.
I never get tired. I tried doing that on my own, and I don't have the patience for it. I've had some success because I have like 7 Lionel train sets, but I don't have the room here to put them up. I tried to, but unfortunately my dog shed so much that my engines kept picking up hair, so I took the trains down. And anyway, so I'm really looking forward to this show, and I have $1 off coupon for the entry fee, which is even better. Sammy Presley hitting super chat. Thank you, Sammy. Joe, we got 106 likes tonight. We didn't even have to ask. So that was great.
Yes, and David Scott says only the AFC title game would be in Atlanta if it's Kansas City versus Buffalo.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Oh, so apparently they will be playing in Buffalo. The Bengals will be playing the Bills in Buffalo this weekend. But if it turns out that Buffalo advances to the title game, the AFC title game, then it's in Atlanta.
Yes.
I don't understand any of this.
Yeah. Okay. You don't even try. So tomorrow night, on our show tomorrow night at 7:35 Eastern Time, we are going to have Jen Walton of Girls Who Chase, as we're going to talk about storm chasing. So have your questions ready, and Joe, we'll see you tomorrow night at 7:35. Hope everybody had a great day. Yes, Cecilia Hernandez, thank you. Men in flannel, thank you.
And Leon Probitsky, last one on the chat board, hitting super chat tonight. Thank you, Leon.
And thank you, Leon. And on that note, nighty night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, folks.